The air in Moscow in January 1959 was so cold, it felt less like a temperature and more like a structural material, solid, brittle, and dangerous. It gnawed at the exposed skin, promising frostbite with an almost personal cruelty. Inside the monolithic concrete and marble fortress of the Luch Factory No. 4, a vast complex dedicated to precision clockwork, and secretly, the guidance systems for the Soviet R-7 intercontinental ballistic missile program, the chill was absolute. But for Dr. Elias Thorne, the cold was merely a minor inconvenience. The real danger lay in the warmth of human scrutiny. Thorne, who insisted on being called Comrade Sergei Volkov, was an imposter. He was an American aeronautical engineer, a sleeper agent planted by the CIA's Office of Scientific Intelligence, OSI, 4 years prior. His mission was not to steal blueprints. It was far more insidious. It was to map the inner workings of the R-7, the rocket that had launched Sputnik, and then to corrupt it from the inside out. He had to introduce a flaw so minute, so elegant, that its catastrophic failure would be blamed on fundamental Soviet engineering, not on espionage. He stood hunched over a workbench, the pale fluorescent lights making the delicate brass gears of a missile gyroscope shimmer like scattered gold dust. He was dressed in the standard thick woolen tunic of a senior engineer, a man who blended perfectly into the gray landscape of Soviet ambition. His hands, though calloused by years of genuine, tireless work on the factory floor, now trembled slightly, not from fear, but from the immense precision required for his final secret calibration. "Volkov, your hands are shaking," snarled Colonel Anatoly Kirov, the factory director and Thorne's closest shadow. Kirov's voice was like grinding gravel, and his eyes, set deep in a permanently suspicious face, seemed designed to dissect lies. "Forgive me, Colonel," Thorne replied in flawless textbook Russian, his voice a gravelly monotone. "The calibration is off by 2 microns. It's the zero-hour mechanism. A slight tremor can skew the entire trajectory after burnout. I was simply compensating for the factory's inherent low-frequency vibration." Kirov stepped closer, his boots clicking ominously on the polished concrete floor. He picked up the gyroscope's casing, a marvel of miniature engineering designed to ensure the colossal multi-ton R-7 stayed true on its path to the stars.
"The trajectory must not skew, Volkov," Kirov said, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "The Americans are mocking us. This mechanism you hold is the key to proving Soviet superiority. It is the iron compass, the guiding heart of our destiny." Thorne nodded. He knew the mechanism well. He had designed its flaw. The flaw was simple, elegant, and almost impossible to detect. A non-standard copper-nickel alloy for the primary gimbal mount containing a molecular-level impurity. Under the immense thermal stress and vibration of launch, it would exhibit thermal creep, a subtle, time-delayed warping that would send the missile off course. "The iron compass is flawless, Colonel," Thorne lied. "But the launch window is critical. Any delay will give the Americans time to refine their countermeasures." Kirov smiled. "Precisely, comrade, which is why you will oversee the final assembly personally. The launch is scheduled for the first week of February, a statement to the world." The roots of Thorne's deception lay in his childhood. His grandfather, a Swiss master horologist, had taught him, "A clock does not tell time. It reveals design. Every man leaves a signature." Henry had shown him a minuscule, deliberate scratch on an antique watch plate. That is the watchmaker's lie, a tiny, intentional flaw, the ultimate defense. This philosophy was Thorne's weapon. His CIA handler had given him a custom-made soldering iron tipped with palladium, his signature tool to introduce the molecular instability in the Soviet alloy. Thorn's greatest challenge was Dr. Irina Rostova, the lead physicist. She found Thorn one evening in the factory library, reviewing reports. "The vibration is a symptom, Sergei, not the disease. The core problem is thermal expansion, your new alloy for the gyroscope mount. It's unique, brilliant, but unnecessary. Why introduce a new, untried element into the most critical component?" Thorn met her gaze. "Standard steel yields standard results, Irina. We are looking for perfection." "But perfection," she countered, "carries no margin for error. If that copper-nickel alloy has one molecular flaw, it would expand under launch stress far more rapidly than steel, leading to catastrophic gyroscopic drift." She had named the danger. "A chilling thought, Doctor," Thorn replied, holding his composure. "But I assure you, the alloy was triple-tested. It is as pure as Soviet ambition." Kirov, certain of betrayal, tried to force a mistake. He fabricated a security breach, arresting a nervous engineer, Nikolai Vornin. Thorn risked everything to save Nikolai, knowing an audit would expose his work. "Colonel, with all respect, the fault is not Vornin's, but the system's," Thorn announced in front of the assembled workers. "A true traitor would be targeting the most critical component, the primary guidance system, the iron compass, not old telemetry." Thorn pointed out the flaw in Kirov's planted evidence, forcing Kirov to back down. Thorn had saved the audit, but earned Kirov's undivided attention. The launch neared. Thorn performed his final act of sabotage, using his Swiss soldering iron to anneal the copper-nickel, introducing a carefully controlled uneven heating pattern to guarantee failure under launch stress. Irina entered the clean room, holding a fragment of the alloy. "There is an anomaly," she whispered. "A persistent, non-standard crystalline dislocation. It will cause localized failure under extreme pressure."
"You are creating ghosts, Irina," Thorn argued, using his political lie. "The foundry is cutting corners. If we replace it now, we miss the launch window. That, my dear doctor, is the true catastrophe. I am protecting the program." Irina, swayed by the need to save the scientific team, let him proceed. Thorn sealed the compass and sent his final code via the soldering iron's burst transmitter. Gimbal 582319 R-7. In Langley, Virginia, Dr. Vivian Shaw, the only person who understood Elias Thorn's code, stared at the numbers. The code was based entirely on an 18th century Swiss watch. The number 19 was the crucial anomaly. It referenced the mainspring barrel, the component whose failure brings the entire clock to a halt. "The R-7 is ready, sir," Vivian reported to Director Hayes. "But the 19 implies the flaw is deeper than we thought. It's structural, destined to happen, like the unwinding of the mainspring itself. If the flaw works, the trajectory will hold for 90 seconds, then the missile will tumble and explode. It will look like a total loss of structural integrity." Hayes approved Operation Tulip, the plan to leak false intelligence, reinforcing the narrative that the failure was due to Soviet metallurgy shortages. Back in Moscow, Kirov launched his final attack, showing Thorn a grainy photo of Elias Thorn, the MIT student. "Our intelligence indicates this man, Elias Thorn, bears a striking resemblance to you, Volkov." Thorn met his gaze. "You insult Soviet security, Colonel. If you truly suspect me, arrest me now. Otherwise, you are a threat to the R-7. Kirov retreated, but he was certain.
The night before the payload was loaded, Irina confronted Thorne again with factory notes confirming his unusual thermal annealing procedure. "You ensured it would fail," she accused. "I am sacrificing this single launch to guarantee the future of our program." Irina stepped back, defeated by the logic of scientific preservation. On the rail journey to the Baikonur Cosmodrome, Thorne created his final message. Using the Swiss soldering iron, he pricked his thumb and pressed his bloody print onto a piece of microfilm hidden in the base of the iron. This was his signature, absolute confirmation that the saboteur was Elias Thorne. At the launch site, Kirov stood behind Thorne. "I know who you are. If that missile explodes tomorrow, it will be the final proof." Thorne raised his glass of vodka. "Then you should pray it flies true, Colonel." The blockhouse was silent as the clock ticked down. T-1 minute. Activating engine cooling. 3, 2, 1, ignition. The R-7 roared to life and began its slow, majestic ascent. Cheers erupted. Kirov smiled and clapped Thorne on the shoulder. 60 seconds. The intense vibration and heat were at their peak. The flawed copper-nickel alloy was yielding. 90 seconds. The screen dedicated to the primary gyroscopes simultaneously went from stable input to 0. "Guidance lock lost! Gyro failure!" a voice shrieked. The R-7 began a slow, terrifying tumble. At 94 seconds, it ignited in a blinding, catastrophic explosion high above the steppe. Silence. Kirov's face was frozen in horror. "You did this! You knew!" "The material failed, Colonel," Thorne insisted. "I warned you about the foundry's shortcuts. It was a failure in Soviet metallurgy." Kirov ignored him. "Security, arrest Comrade Volkov. He is the American spy, Elias Thorne." Thorne did not resist. As he was dragged away, he saw Irina Rostova, her face a mask of terrible realization, giving him the slightest protective shake of the head. In Lubyanka prison, Kirov demanded a confession, but Thorne hammered the strategic lie. "If you try to frame me, you confirm to the Americans that the missile was perfect and a spy caused the failure. You are giving them victory." The Kremlin intervened. The failure must be attributed to metallurgical defect. The KGB could not prove Thorne was a spy, but they could not tolerate his existence. He was sent to a scientific sharashka, a prison camp in the Urals, his genius neutralized. As he was escorted to the prison train, he found a folded piece of paper in his jacket from Irina Rostova. It contained the terrifyingly precise equation for the thermal expansion and a cryptic note. "I solved the creep, Sergei. The flaw was not in the material. It was in the plan. Go in peace. Science will endure." Thorne smiled. His scientific lie had been accepted and protected. 3 days later, in Langley, Director Hayes celebrated the headlines. R-7 explodes. USSR space ambition built on brittle iron. Vivian Shaw looked at the recovered microfilm of Elias Thorne's thumbprint, his final, costly signature. "We activate Operation Tulip immediately," Vivian ordered. "We must reinforce their shame. We must protect Elias Thorne's sacrifice." 6 months passed. Kirov was disgraced. Irina Rostova, however, was in charge of the R-7 redesign. She received a leaked CIA report confirming the foundry's chronic quality issues. which also contained a cryptic footnote referring to a watchmaker's code and the mainspring barrel. Irina knew the Americans were protecting Thorne's lie. She was now the guardian of the second lie. 1 year later, Elias Thorne, now prisoner 387, was working on water pumps in the Urals. He found a recent physics text by Irina Rostova. Tucked into the spine was a folded sheet of graph paper with a single complex and insolvable equation for a new thermal exchange valve for the R-7. Irina was challenging him. He spent 3 days working on the equation, solving and refining it. He handed the solution to the prison librarian, instructing the man to simply return this to the author. She left an error in the derivation. In 1961, Yuri Gagarin was launched into orbit on the revised R-7, which used the thermal exchange valve based on Thorne's solution. In 1969, Neil Armstrong walked on the moon. Vivian Shaw received a final, highly classified field report. Prisoner 387, the engineer known as Volkov, suffered a severe stroke in 1968. He died in the prison hospital a week later. His last words were reportedly a sequence of numbers spoken in a delirium. 5-8-2-3-1-9. Vivian Shaw closed her eyes, the numbers ringing in her memory. The iron compass. He had held on to his secret until his very last breath. He had been a prisoner for a cause he could never claim, a hero whose ultimate sacrifice was silence. The clock of Elias Thorne's life had finally run out, but the consequence of his great lie, the advancement of American ambition, had endured.